Cool.
Hey everybody, welcome to Printavo University. How is it going? We got a great guest today. I'm so glad to see everybody. We have folks shouting out in the chat where they're from, and that's what we love to hear. We love to hear where you're from, folks. We see somebody from Oregon, Chicago, Michigan, Minnesota. Let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We would love to know. We are talking about automation today, which as Printavo users know, we know a little bit about. So I'm really excited to hear what everybody's got to say. As always, my co-host today on our customer success team, he's an expert in everything printing. It's Matt Marcotte. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, buddy. I'm super stoked for today. I mean, obviously this week Printavo launched the automation suite, but we're not going to just be talking about the automation suite itself. We're talking about automation in a much larger picture. When we're talking about this, there's no one else that we could think of that has more to say, has better systems than the one and only Stephen Farag of Campus Inc. So without any further ado, our guest is Stephen. What's going on, Stephen?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. How's everything going?
Great,
awesome.
Man.
This week's been, I don't know about you, Nick, but I've been hearing the best responses to the automation suite. And then being on the success side, it's been a lot of fun diving in and actually implementing automations in people's shops that oftentimes they don't really look at automation. So this week's been killer, and I think it's perfect timing to have this chat.
Sweet. Well, I appreciate it. I think that feature has been a long time coming, and I think it's cool that it comes around the holidays because I feel like January and February are always like a reset for shops. That's what we did around the holidays, and exciting to see what we can do today. If you guys, to make today go well, it helps us out a little bit, helps me out if I know if you're a Printavo shop or not, just so we can not kind of zero in on maybe what we want to talk about. So I put a question in there asking like if you're a Printavo shop, would love to just let us know or something like that, because we can drill into it a little bit. I think we want today to flow really well. If there's questions that you all have, I think Matt's going to be answering them, or Matt's going to be fielding them. And then those who know me know I made an investment into my good friend Bruce. We decided to make 500 of himself to celebrate Merch's anniversary, and this one is a Mike Tyson edition. I think there's a contest that we're gonna do, and so if you post on Instagram, tag me if you don't mind, Steven.inc_ tag Printavo, something about automation, tag Bruce in it. We'll pick a couple winners, we'll ship them out. Yeah, Craig, you're a new Printavo shop going live 2/8. Congratulations. Nicely done. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Good year to be jumping into the updates that have gone past, the new automations, and some ones that are coming up here soon. Gonna make it probably the best year, I think, for Printavo to date. It's gonna be a game changer. So
yeah, absolutely. Let me jump in real quick, guys. One quick thing, Stephen. Only we can see those questions. So if you want to say anything to the audience, pop it in the chat. Also, folks in the chat, come on, tell us where you're watching from. And if you are a Printavo user like Craig, love to see it. But let's start at the beginning. Let's not go too deep at the first question. Stephen, tell us about yourself and tell us about Campus Inc.
Sure. So my name is Stephen Farag. I own Campus Inc. Printing, Clubhouse Athletic. Campus Inc. is essentially a screen printing and embroidery company that I joined 6 years ago. Hey, Jason. All right, we got shops from Philly. All right, yeah, keep pushing where you're from because that's cool to see too. I got into the business because of sales, not because I learned how to print. I'm not the best printer. I've learned how to print and make it by, but I got into it because of the marketing and sales side. Something that happened in college, a couple designs that went viral. I ended up buying into the print shop that had printed for me. And Matt will tell you a little bit about it. It was on a second floor, 2,000 square feet. We had a Lawson crammed in the corner, an Omega dryer from 1980. It was ugly. We would take shirts up and down the stairs every day. They busted a hole through the back of the building to bring shirts up with a forklift. But essentially, they knew how to print pretty well, and they said you deal with the sales, the marketing, and all that. And so I jumped in right after graduating college, like the day after graduation. Since then, we've been able to scale the company. A couple big reasons why we've been able to scale is using technology and leveraging it in every capacity. Essentially, when we first started out, my business partners wouldn't let me hire everyone and their friends. In fact, they said Shopworks was too expensive, so find something cheaper, right? And so I had to find a tool at the time that was not very expensive, and that's how I landed on Printavo. But, I had to realize that I was going to have to use every resource possible to grow, because they weren't really going to say, just go hire, and just be willy-nilly. They wanted me in the shop. They wanted me learning. And so that's when I really started leveraging automations and realizing that automation was a tool. It was an employee of mine, and really dove into it. And Printavo, as you guys have scaled, have obviously increased all of your automations. So yeah, that's it. Our business model, we hire and train college students around the country in design and sales. And so we're on about 26, 27 campuses. We have about 130 students, and all of them are Printavo users. So I have 145 users on the backside of our Printavo. Every single one is using it. Every single one is submitting orders. It's chaotic, but we use technology to do it. I'll let you take it from there, Nick.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I remember when you guys were. I had the opportunity to tour that shop Steven was talking about. They moved it to a much bigger facility, but it was right above. I can't remember the type of food it was, but it was right above a restaurant, and you could definitely smell whatever it was they were cooking. It smelled good. Yeah, right above Korean restaurant.
It was good Korean food too.
Yeah, it was a decent plate. Big question I have for you, Steven, is in your opinion, what does an automated print shop look like? What does that actually look like in the real world?
Yeah, so I think that's interesting, because we've been automating all day with our presses, right? Like, we went from manual presses to auto presses. Okay, that's automation right there. From saving your forearms to using a press that can print 400, 500, 600 shirts an hour, right? So at its simplest form, we have been automating with our equipment, and that is very easy to physically see. I think the industry is naturally doing that as a whole. People are moving to direct to screen, getting better presses, tri-lock. Like, tri-lock is automation, right? These registration systems, that is automation. Really where, I see the next step of automation is now utilizing technology that might be common for the rest of the world and integrating in that shop to bring that shop to the same level from their software side to their actual printing presses, right? And when you're able to do both and leverage both your physical equipment and your software, you're able to run an efficient, profitable, and healthy business, right? And there's so many different ways we can dive into that, but at its simplest form, it's technology, people, and equipment, right? And making that all flow in such a way that it's beautiful, right? And that's automation to me.
So I think Campus Inc. Right when I met you guys, you were already part of Campus Inc. It was obviously a much different shop than it is now. I think it was a good capture of a lot of shops that I've worked with over the years that maybe were the previous generation, maybe 2 generations old, right? They've been handed down from a father to a son. That son's now also aged, and it's continuing to grow. And they really looked at automation as that piece of equipment. And some shops consider that oh, that's our big investment. We're automating the process right there. And then they stop there, and that's the only automation they really think about. So with that shop, Campus Inc., I would say it falls in that category as well. They already had some not great, but decent automatic presses. They were already automating what they thought was what they had to automate. What do you think was the linchpin, the change that helped them understand that it's not just about the presses, it's actually about the people and the processes? I mean, you are the answer to that, but how do you think you were able to get the older generation partners to understand the new needs and to actually let you drive the business forward with automation? Was that even a hard challenge? Were they totally open to it? And how did you go about even approaching that?
They knew that I was going to do that, right? They knew Steven's going to do the sales, marketing, and computer stuff, right? Like, my business partner, I showed him something I was working on. He goes, "Is this on the cloud?" Yeah, it's on the cloud, right? So, the best way I put it is, one of my business partners was like, "We know we have to do it. We don't know how to do it. We're trusting you to do it." And what I was letting them know is we're not that far away from making small incremental changes to massively change our business. Now, when I came into the business, they said, can we get that online design tool? That was what they thought automation was, right? And what was funny is they are consumers in this world that we're automated in, and they're yawning at the fact that you can order Starbucks from your phone and you have Netflix at home, but yet they don't think that you should have that in your business, that it's some crazy thing to attain, right? And so there was a point where I was constantly making small incremental changes along the way to just prove it to them. If we talk about text messaging, okay, you can connect Printavo to Twilio, right, to get art approvals. A text is 1 penny, so it is nominal, right? But to use text messaging, I believe you have to be on the premium plan, if I'm not mistaken. We're talking
Correct.
$200 difference, right? Text message automations, we get art approvals in 5 minutes, right? We get art approvals in 5 minutes when we text our customers. There's no sending an email, uploading a PDF. We get art approvals in 5 minutes because text messages are sent out. And if they don't respond, we have another status that says your order is on hold. You haven't approved your art, and it's another text message. Right. And so like, if we just take that small feature, and I ask you, is that worth 25 cents an hour? Is having text message automations worth 25 cents an hour? And when shops say, I wouldn't pay for that, are you crazy? Right. And so I was able to level with my business partners a little bit and say, look, guys, look at how much nicer it is. Would you ever want to live in a world where we don't have texting automation? And would you ever want to live in a world where you have to pay someone a little bit more to send out an email, attach a PDF, follow up? And now they yawn at it. Oh yeah, we have texting. And so we don't now, 5-6 years later, technology is our cheapest employee that we have. And I use texting as an example, but there's so many other ways to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
Stephen, you are kind of one of Printavo's resident automation experts. We've had you talk about automating shops at our Print Hustlers conference before, I think twice actually. So I have kind of a out there question for you. What is your favorite part about doing this work? And by this work, I mean programming automations. And then what is your least favorite part about automating your shop?
Right. Why do we automate, right? Like what at the principal core, why do we automate? We automate to liberate ourselves, right? As business owners, we automate to liberate our time. And that's really what it comes down to. And it's, the bigger your business grows, the less time you can spend on things that made our business grow in the first place. If in the first year of business, I spend a ton of time selling, my business will not grow unless I replace myself. And so the reason I love automations is it's because it allows you to go from first grade to second grade to third grade. When you realize you can find a solution for that, you can actually work on bigger and bigger things to grow your business and to make your product better rather than working on the stuff you were doing every single day. To me, that is the prize. Right? That is the prize, and I don't know where the prize ends. But to be able to see your employees enjoy automation and that there's always a better way to do it. Like at Campus Inc., they make fun of me because I use way too many apps. We do that because it's easier for us to work. It's less of a load. When I find a better way, like when an employee has a problem, they will always come to me and say, is there a better way we can do this? And we should be thinking about that everywhere in our business. Is there a better way to put tape on? Because if you find better tape, like split tape, it's $1 more expensive per roll, but you can pull it on and off in half the time. That's automation too. So it's always an ever-going challenge, and I think it's kind of like a contest, and I enjoy that for sure.
Yeah, I think to what you're saying is something that I've dealt with personally, you've dealt with personally, and then in my consulting time, I hear all the time, well, I'm just trying to make more hours in the day. Well, you can't physically make more hours in the day, but you can look at what you're doing to save seconds, which add up to minutes, add up to hours, and so on. So looking at a simple automation that we already have within Printavo, right? Being able to have a status change notification automation to email and text message somebody. That alone, we've done the math on. You do it 10 times a day. It was 1 minute to do it. That ends up being 40 hours throughout the whole year. So we've brought you a whole week. So people tend to look too much at, okay, I got to get through more t-shirts faster. Let's get a press. Okay, I need to reclaim faster. Let's get a machine. Oftentimes overlook all the other repetitive tasks that have to get done throughout the day, the approvals, the scheduling, all these different things. And being able to utilize features that are coming out and are oftentimes very affordable or open source on the internet to help guide automation. Things like Zapier. A lot of folks are like, oh, I don't want to spend the extra money on Zapier. It's like, okay, well, there's a lot you can do that saves you time and actually makes you even more efficient and effective than you were before without using the automation. So little things like that people need to open up to.
And I think, and the reason I like going to trade shows is like, I'll level with a shop and just be like, yeah, it's 2021, like my parents know how to order on Grubhub. Okay. Like this pandemic taught my parents how to order on Grubhub. There's no generational gaps are closing because technology is everywhere around us. And we have to either, I follow this guy, Jack Butcher on Twitter, and he's like, automate or die, right? Like automate or die. We have to really, really think about it from a survival standpoint is like, we have to keep raising the bar because Amazon's doing it. If that is what the new norm is, and we don't offer that, people are going to be, confused when they interact with your business. And the way I look at it is like this. Nick, you and I were in high school, or we were in elementary school in 2005, 2004, 3, something like that. We had AOL 8.0 CDs. So you would get a new AOL 8.0 CD, right? And that was only what, 16 years ago, 15 years ago? And now we're getting a software update on iPhone 11 every other day with a new feature. And so we have to step out of 2003, 2005. Technology now moves at a much quicker pace, And so we almost have to say, like, what am I going to start adopting to grow with? Jose, you said you don't use text message notifications because it says reply to. Well, we start every text with do not reply because that's what United does too. And so, there's always a way, when you get a thing from United Airlines that says your flight's delayed, right? You don't reply to it. It says do not reply on the top, right? And so I know there's always a better way to do it because I didn't want someone responding to that. At the bottom of the message, we say, if you need to respond to this, please call this number or click this number to text it. For the opportunities of people getting confused, I think more people like it and it's worth it more. But to Jose's point, if that wasn't working for you, you got Zapier to use ClickSend, right? So there's always a better way. You always have to be a mechanic on your business when you're doing those kind of things. And if you hit a roadblock, like, there's a way around it. I when people say that doesn't work for me, and I'm just like, okay, then you're giving up. There's always a better way. Yeah.
Let me cut in.
One thing I want to bring up that you brought up, it's 2021, right? And that our parents, this generational gap is closing. There's not a gap anymore. I would say that COVID, tons of terribleness to it. The one of a few silver linings is it has definitely helped shorten that gap. I think we've seen a lot more automation and a lot more publicity around ways to streamline services. Now everyone knows Grubhub. Everyone knows how to do those things. You can set up an appointment to go to the doctor on your phone, right? You can do vaccinations, COVID tests, all automated through your phone. I've had 4 COVID tests now, and all of them were quick text type things where they show me where to go, tell me when to walk up. They reach through a door, do it. I get a text response within like 20 minutes saying positive or negative. Everything's become more automated. I think that we've obviously seen a big shift in automation over the last 5-6 years. Really, when we've seen a lot of these software companies come forward and have a lot of API applications where you can connect things. But I think COVID has changed that paradigm even faster to really create the new future. So I think now more than ever, like what you're saying, it's automate or die, right? That's a very hard-nosed way to look at it, but it kind of is the fact. If you want to be a competing business in the modern landscape, you have to be open to automation, and you have to deliver a term that people didn't know about 10 years ago, a good UX, user experience, right? If you don't have that, you don't hold on to anybody anymore. You can complain saying, oh, I don't like where it's going. I don't like these different changes. You can have those feelings, but the fact of the matter is you're either left in the dust with a smaller group to go serve, or you have to assimilate and move forward into the new future that we're all part of. So I think you brought up a good point that COVID has helped this. Yeah.
Yes. It's not all rosy though, right? I mean, there is still work to this. So Stephen, tell us what's some of the challenges of automating this stuff?
Sure. So I was just talking to a shop yesterday. Printavo doesn't have a great scheduling tool right now. You guys are working on it. But I can't live without invoice approvals, automation, having all my students on the platform, production files, all that. So what do? We're like, until that feature comes out, we have to find an alternative. And that might mean that there is a little bit more human interaction. Even though Starbucks is extremely automated, someone still pulls the drink down, right? Someone still puts the sticker on the cup, right? It's not completely robotic. And so the point that I was kind of trying to make was it's okay if you have to use other tools and leverage different features of them. I'll throw into my Monday here right now if you guys want to see, just so you guys can, I know I've had a couple of people asking me how we do this. And this is something, we chat with shops, we learn a little bit about it. You talk with the Printavo engineers, like what they're working on. Hey, Justin.
What up, Justin?
Good to see you, Justin.
Last time I was on a Printavo webinar, Justin had to come on screen. We might have to bring him on screen later if it's a rite of passage thing. When you have a shop that's, that you aspire to be, you got to bring them on screen and things like that. There's your Bruce bobblehead. You can buy that if you'd like. Here's our Printavo, right? It's super colorful. My Printavo is going to look a lot different than your Printavo. Say it what it is. In the way that we use it, we're always living in the weekly view. We don't use these for time. We just use them to categorize different departments visually, right? But, in our business, it doesn't do everything for us, right? And we have, I want to say 90 different statuses. When new employees come in, they might get a little scared because there's 90 different statuses. And I tell them, you're probably only going to have to worry about this many statuses. What I do is I zero in on a very specific department. And we could take a department like our art department, right? Like we use GraphX. We have a completely outsourced art department. But with GraphX, you have to realize they're in another country. They're not on the ground floor with us. We're just talking over Skype. And so their set of automations are very linear. Create customer art versus creating an online store mockup. And when they do that, they say it's complete. Create a vector, vector complete. Digitize, digitize complete. With different departments, what we do is we hone in on them. With our students, right? They will place orders and there's issues that happen with their orders. We didn't get their artwork correctly, right? We were missing production files. I have a status that says we're missing a font, convert to outlines, please, right? Need specific ink colors, right? So this is how we automate and train our sales team of students around the country to put in good information. We don't do it for them. We don't text them. Their order goes on hold, and attached to every one of these statuses is a Loom video teaching them exactly what to do, right? And so you're constantly correcting them, if that makes sense, right? So the one thing that I was talking about earlier was that we use like other tools. When an order gets processed in Printavo, it gets checked in at the shop, and then we go over to scheduling, and we do that in Monday. We zap Printavo over to Monday. In Monday, the job gets tagged for every different department that it's going to. We'll say this is going to the screen printing department, embroidery department, DTG, promo, whatever. And then those are individual departments that we schedule and zero in on. It would be crazy for me to say, Printavo, you have to build this exactly how this looks, because I have goofy things in here that are very native to my shop. But at the same time, it doesn't work perfectly. You have to go in every Friday and archive. It doesn't have dependencies, meaning if another department is done, it doesn't tell the other department that it's done. So there are shortfalls, but it's better than not doing anything, right? And I think that's the most important part is it's okay if your automation isn't perfect. That progress is way better, way better than perfection.
And when you look at other solutions that may be out there, they're also not going to fit every need perfectly. You can't say that every shop is going to do the same exact things. Sure, maybe 60% of it's the same, but they're all going to have their own unique style. You have 140 different
not quite
students.
Yet. Close.
How many students did you had that are working?
We're probably 120, 130.
Okay,
pretty close.
Very close. So a lot of folks. So there isn't really a software on the market that fits your needs exactly. So instead of saying, well, I can't do it, you said, well, let's use Printavo that has the robustness that I need to do. And then let's find where it has to be unique for me, and let's just solve it. Let's build it. So You've used automation to create your own custom process and make it efficient. So a lot of times I'm talking to shops like, well, we don't have this feature. We need it. I hear you. We're going to build things to help it move forward. But you can also use a lot of other plugins or applications that allow you to do this. Zapier's being a big part of that. You're using Zapier automatically to bring over to your Monday and continue that process. So I think you said it right, where if you hit a hurdle and you go, well, I can't, you're choosing can't. You're choosing to give up on that. You can also say, I can't that way. Let's find a solution and let's automate to help fix that.
And the reason I say that is we're not doing brain surgery. Like we're not trying to find, we're not curing cancer. We're not finding a vaccine. There are other people out there that have solved much harder problems. And I say that in the nicest way possible. But if you've watched the Amazon tour of their fulfillment center, you know that there's a possibility. So if you know that there's a possibility out there, you have to solve for it as quickly as possible. It's one of those things where like, we go to trade shows, you see things happening, and you gather ideas and you're like, okay, if they can do it, why can't I do it? And I think that's like, you kind of have to look in the mirror and be like, the other thing is like shops might say like, I am not capable of doing it. And I think it's really important to know I can't versus I'm not capable of it. Like I am not a coder. I don't code, right? I'm very very bad at it. I can imagine what I want, but I just can't code. And we wanted a tool out there that could help us calculate commissions for our students. And there isn't something out there on the web that will figure out a way to calculate commissions for some students based on how many shirts they sold. But it was a very, very specific function. I went on Upwork, I found an engineer, I threw some money at it, right? And I said, can you try and build this for me, right? And for it to do one single feature, right, it was all of $30,000 or $40,000, right? And it's built on the Printavo API. And then when something breaks, I have to message them and say, guys, I can't calculate this correctly. Can someone help me? You know, you get to a point where you try building things yourself, and sometimes it works. For us, I can't live without that feature. I really, really need it, right? And so I exhausted everything, but then I said, you know what? I am not capable of this. I'm not going to stop our business here, but I'm going to figure out the next way to get there, right? And I think the same goes with equipment. You see shops getting super creative. Like I saw, if it was Eric Solomon at Night Owl, they took a rapid tag and a heat press and they combined them. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of this, right? To do neck tags faster. That's wild, right? Like that is wild. That is hardware, software, firmware. Like that is really, really cool. But you know, Eric's the type of person who's like, I'm not going to be stopped. I'll figure out a way to do it because there's always a better way.
For sure. Shout out to Night Owl's Prints. You can watch our water-based class with them on Printavo YouTube. I love all this talk. Steven, I also love that you think you're the same age as me. I'm older than you. He's like, back in elementary school in 2004. No,
I graduated the same year.
But the thing I think, though, I bet a lot of people watching this are thinking the same question. This is great. I'm convinced. Where do you start? What do you start doing to implement this stuff?
Right. The other irony of all of this is you'll see people post on some of the boards like, should I use Printavo or this? And I'll message them and say, hey, you know, there's a 14-day trial. Just start now. Just log in. Like what? Like just log in. Right. And that's the whole thing is like, a lot of times we are so afraid to start because we're worried that it's so overwhelming we won't know what to do. But, you know, just start, just try. There are so many resources out there to learn and help and figure those things out. None of the automation like that we really do is done with anything super custom built. I'll try one little thing and say, okay, like, can I send a text message this way? And then be like, okay, can I like up it a little bit and try this out, right? And so if you were to watch my How Campus Sportswear at the time uses Printavo in 2016, which is on YouTube, on the Printavo thing, and you look at all the statuses, if you look at all the statuses and you look at all my statuses now, they are completely different because your business is an organism that's constantly evolving, and it's going to like, it's gonna cure itself a little bit. It's going to correct itself a little bit. And we always tell everyone in our shop, if it's not working right, stop doing it. Like, stop doing it. Let's change something. And so what's really great is like our team will always ask, hey, Steven, do you think we could have a status for this? And that's cool when they come to me because they're like, they are thinking outwardly and thinking, you know, to build and things like that. Right. And so it's, you know, I know shops out there that are husband and wife, 2-person shops, single person shops, broker shops, 8 auto shops. You know, the learning curve is just the will and the desire to want to do it. What's interesting is it's like, it's fun once you kind of get the taste of it. And you realize it's like playing with Connects or Legos.
Absolutely. So you actually got me started going into Zapier on exactly what Jose's bringing up. I built the Zap on sending Google reviews automatically using Zapier, which Jose, hit up success@printavo.com. We can actually help you out with that. But I've got a question about something you just mentioned a minute ago. So you reached out, you decided you weren't capable of doing the coding. So you reached out, you went on Upwork, and you found someone that was capable of it. And then you said it was $30,000 to $40,000 for one automation to be created. So my question to you is, how did you quantify the value of that? And then how do you actually figure out the metric of it? Was it worth it? Right? You can say that I can't live without it now. It's very helpful. But how did you quantify the value to say it's worth me investing $30,000 to $40,000? That's a lot of money for most print shops, even your shop. It's a lot of money. So how did you quantify that to say it was worth it? And then how did you actually go about the metric to verify that it was?
Right. So when it became unbearable to do manually, I realized like there has to be a better way. So I knew like it was unbearable to the point where it was even like I couldn't have an employee do it because it was so crappy to do, right? There was so much manual work that had to be done. And so I started thinking like, okay, I'm paying an employee kind of like accounting help to figure this out, 18 to 20 bucks an hour to do this. It's high level work. If they make a mistake, it's costly because there's money on the line. They were handling commissions, right? And at 30, 40 hours a week, I'm paying them 30 or 40 grand to do that job year over year over year, right? And so I look at it and I'm like, okay, if I can build this in a certain amount of time and it costs this much and it's sustainable, in year 2, the cost is zero. I just paid it off. And it's the same with a CTS. It's the same with a Unicoat, right? $18,000 is expensive to buy an autocoder, but it's a $7 or $8 employee you pay for 1 year, and then any single person in your shop can code a screen, right? That's it. You have to just you have to just feed the meter for 1 year for $8 an hour, and for the rest of your career, every single employee will be able to coat screens in your shop, right? And so that's how I quantify it. I quantify it to people. I also look at like how hard the work is. Is it unbearable? Is something like, when are we going to get an auto reclaim? Well, when the guy that I have right now says, I don't want to do this anymore because like he's retired and loves it. So when he retires, or B, when we're pushing too many screens out that he can't take it. I've already said in my head, when he's done, I have to get a reclaim, right? Because I'm kind of just, and it's not like you're going to replace the employees. I think everyone thinks like robots are going to run it. No, Amazon still employs 1 million people. You find better roles and better ways for those people to work, right? And so, yeah, on the reviews, Zapier with Twilio on Printavo on a status, we used that for a really long time. And then, believe it or not, I actually started paying for Signpost, and that's $2,400 a year. But it took us to the next level with reviews, and we went from 50 reviews to now 305-star reviews on Google, right? And so to me, that was worth it. And I think it was Justin Lawrence that said, how much would you pay for 300 5-star reviews right now? And I'm like, I don't know. And now, yeah, Signpost every year, run it. We're doing it, no brainer. So that's a good question on the reviews though.
Let me jump in here. So what Matt brought up, I think, is a good answer to the question before it too. Where do you start? A lot of the people thinking about this are wondering where you start. And Matt brought up a great point. Dollars. Think about the ones where how can you save a couple seconds on a lot of different tasks? The question then is another thing that Stephen brought up. Another question then, is the thing Stephen brought up. What do you hate doing? That's where I think you start. What do you do every day that you're like, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. For me, it's writing a bunch of follow-up emails. So I'm in sales. I'm following up with people all day. I've got it down on my different programs where I could press 2 buttons and then I send my email. I get to change it. I get to change it around. You could do that in Printavo too, right? You could press 1 button, you send your emails, you send your texts. In my opinion, I think a good place to start is, what is something I do every single day that I don't enjoy doing? That's the thing to start thinking about automate. With that in mind, okay, what makes a good automation? I'm curious to hear what both of you gentlemen have. I have a few thoughts on it too, but Stephen, let's start with you. What makes a good automation?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Automation, automation, for it to work, it needs to be redundant. Redundant meaning it checks itself, right? Like there are checks and balances. You can know if something's going wrong. An example for that is we send an art approval out. The redundancy is if we don't see that status change in 24 hours, one employee is responsible for doing a follow-up status. Okay, that is the redundancy, because what if the phone number was wrong? What if they didn't get the thing? What if it went to their spam? All those different things, that's the redundancy, because, it's 98% perfect. But if we're doing 100 orders per week, I don't want to mess up 2 orders, right? And so automation has to have checks and balances. Automation also has to have a really good standard operating procedure, right? And so a 1-page or 2-pager that explains what the feature is, who's responsible for it, when it's going to be used, and a step-by-step process of how to use it, so that you, the business owner, can hand it to someone, turn around, and it'll still work. Automation to work, you got to be hands-free, right? you should have no stake in that automation. And that's really like kind of my big things is it's got to be redundant. It's got to have procedures, and it can't involve like it shouldn't involve you. And that's the hardest part, is to take yourself out of that automation, because you're trying to liberate your time and make your shop more efficient. Right. Matt, what do you think?
No, I completely agree. I think it's a matter of setting something that is redundant, repetitive tasks should always be automated whenever you can. Anything that's also going to slow people down. Easy example that almost every print shop can easily grasp is going from a manual press to an automatic press, right? Because they're more efficient and it's saving their body. But a physical fatigue is only one aspect. A mental fatigue happens to the people that are up front on your sales side, on your customer service side. Creating less mental fatigue and less challenges for them to be effective and efficient helps them also stay happier, better employees, better customer service representatives. They're going to dive in with a better attitude throughout the day. So you're creating processes that make efficiencies higher, but you're also giving the people a better opportunity to feel successful and do it. You mentioned that people don't want to think about, oh, I'm automating my different processes or even equipment to take away an employee. Well, sometimes the fact of the matter is you have one too many employees because you need one too many employees. Well, right. Chances are, in most instances, in most shops, maybe not yours, not all of them, the person you have doing reclaiming is the lowest man on the totem pole, right? And you need them because you have to reclaim screens. But maybe they're kind of hit or miss. They show up when they want, and you don't love them as an employee, and they're not even necessarily the best when it comes to culture for your shop.
And they take up your bandwidth. Yeah,
exactly. You automate that, and now you can bring in a higher caliber person and say, hey, your job is maintenance on this big machine and running the big machine. They're intrinsically going to be more involved and happier about that job, of course, because I'll tell you, as somebody who's done it, it sucks doing 8 hours a day, holding the pressure washer and scrubbing things, right? So now you're actually giving a better opportunity. You're getting somebody who's going to be more excited about their job, working with a big piece of equipment. You're automating processes and making better employees and better culture in your shop. So
right.
There's so many domino effects to good automation that you can see rippling through all sorts of shops. Same thing with you brought up Amazon. They still have millions of employees. They're automating what they can, but they're still giving jobs where they're needed. And maybe they're losing somebody that has to just literally go find a box because they don't need that anymore. But they have less employees that are happier employees that are doing predictable things that they know what they're going into every day. So it has so many adverse effects that are positive that can come into your shop's daily usage with automations.
Right. And there's different features, like for instance, like for email, right? There, if you were to ask, my team, and some of them are on here, what is your favorite app to use that Steven has? I bet you they would all say something slightly different. And if they're on here right now and they haven't gotten, bored from listening to me because they are doing that all the time, it's interesting because they all gravitate towards something else, and then it makes them that much more efficient. One of our employees loves this tool called Fellow for taking really good notes and being able to Slack them after and having really good streams. One of our employees really loves Front because you're able to chat on your email. Nick, who does all of our Clubhouse sales, like you take Pipedrive or Salesforce away from him and it's like he swears by that, right? And so I have to find Nick the best possible tools for his role. And if they have nothing to do with someone else's role, that's okay, because I'm making Nick, one, a lot happier. He's adopting it a lot more, and he's a lot happier to use it. And so literally just last week, Nick came from a big company that used Salesforce, and we gave him Pipedrive because we were being cheap about it. And he's like, guys, do you know the power I could do if you could just get me like the tools that I used to have at my old job? And so we went through a whole discovery phase, did it, and like we're going to be building it out this afternoon. Because if I don't give Nick the tools that he needs to sell better, then I'm eventually going to have to find another Nick to use the crappy tools that I'm giving both of them. It's okay to lean into different applications. It's okay to find different things. But it's interesting to also hear from your employees what they like and what they don't like. Because when you think about an employee, like what they do should be frictionless or should reduce as much friction as possible in your business. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Love to hear about a happy Nick. And folks, if you don't have a Nick on your sales team, you got to get one. Every sales team in the country is going to have a Nick.
They're good.
Coming up soon. You got to have a Nick on your sales team.
I was talking about my Nick, not your
Nick.
I
know. Yeah. But every sales team has a Nick. The thing is, okay, I want to just recap really quick. Steven said friction. So where is friction in your day? Matt said repetition, and fatigue. Okay, love it. I got one more for you. How about something you cannot monitor? Getting notifications for stuff that a human cannot really monitor is awesome because a robot can do it way better than we can. Let me give you the perfect example. When someone comes to the Printavo website, they sign up to get a trial. Then they say, it's really cool. I think this is great, but I've got 100,000 coming in revenue this month, so I don't have time to set it up. They come back a month or two. When they come back in a month at 2:30 in the morning, because they're like, man, what's up with Printavo? I get a notification in my CRM. I could never look at all of Printavo's traffic and match it up to see, okay, who already has a trial, who doesn't, when should I contact? It would be impossible. It literally is something a human couldn't do. So I think something like if you want a notification on a rare event is another thing to think about with an automation because a robot can watch those things much closer than a human ever could.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, so Stephen, we've talked about this a little bit, but let's go in depth on this one. A lot of people think of automations like they're set it and forget it. It's not like that. How do you, once you have your automation set up, what are you monitoring for?
That's a really good question, right? Because I'll get a lot of shops that call me up and say, can you just build this for us? They're like, no, because when you don't know how to use it, you're going to call me, right? Absolutely not. I don't build stuff for shops. I will teach you how to build them. We will work on them together. I will not train someone's employees without them there and everyone working on it together because your automations are a living organism in your business, right? And I mean, it's no different than installing a brand new press and you have to call M&R and Rock every time, like to lube up your machine or something like that. It's no different than that. The maintenance on your presses is just as important as the press running itself. And the owner needs to know how to do maintenance really, really well because things are going to break and there's general upkeep. If we just look at Zapier, for instance, like I think every 12 months API tokens reset in the technology world. That's frustrating because you usually don't put it on your calendar when you know it's going to reset. And so you have to know how to quickly grab the API token and re-put it in there because you'll notice like, oh crap, all the automations aren't working that day. Or like when a webhook is disabled from EasyPost, there's something that's breaking on the back end. It's not purposeful, but you have to be able to jump in there very quickly. And so it's a living, breathing organism that you have to know how it works or have very quick access to fixing it. No different than a mechanic in their shop. Something that I do, those who know me know I love workflow. Like I love drawing out like diagrams and workflows. So my employees know I have this like massive sketchbook of all the different processes in the business and when we're going to be using Printavo for them, when we're not. And I just kind of start drawing it out and I'm constantly doodling on them. And then we're constantly going back to them. When the new automations came out, we had to redo everything that we were doing, right? Because we wanted so much more redundancy to take over more communication and to get approvals faster. We rebuilt our entire flow because now with the new automations, you can go left, right, up, down, all at the same time. And I want to say I started working on it and it was like 2 or 3 days. Here's new automations. So if you guys can see my screen right here, we're basically rebuilding the way students can request approvals from us and work with us. And so I started using a Printavo symbol when I thought Printavo would do it for us and when I thought, we would manually do it for us or when it would go to our Slack or something like that. And this is completely different from how the old one used to work, right? Which was very linearly. I just draw. A lot of people will use whiteboards or things like that. You have to be a surgeon on your business at all times. Whiteboards are great if you don't want to use tech to do it. So, yeah.
I think whiteboarding or using a tech whiteboard like that is also a great way to figure out where should you start automating, right? You start actually drawing out the process. Not enough shops have done that in my experience. I've been lucky enough to go into literally hundreds of shops. Maybe a few dozen total have actually gone through and made a linear process of what's happening, creating a true flow chart, an organizational chart. I highly recommend everyone does that for every department in their company and then an overview of all of them interdepartmentally. That's a great way to really see, okay, what tasks are repetitive, and then start looking at those connection points and going, can this become automated? You can start to see where trends will add up and where you can save the most time and stop friction points like we talked about. So I'd say the first step, going back to one of your questions, Nick, the first step to automating is figure out where to automate, right?
Right.
Make your roadmap for what it currently is, and then you can start to make small steps. Like Steven said earlier at the top of the hour, small little changes, right? So create your process and then insert small little changes of automation and test those things out.
I'll show you all another one. There's always this argument of Stripe, PayPal, ACH. They can all be used if you want to use them. But I was working with our new bookkeeper, and she's like, "Can you explain to me how all your money flows throughout the shop?" And when it came down to it, we had Printavo stores, Printavo merch stores. We were taking ACH through Melio. We were running Shopify stores. Adam was running Squarespace stores. We were doing fundraising checks, all of these different amounts of money coming in and out. You know, she kind of was like, wow, like you're able to take everything in. I'm like, yeah, we don't want to turn it down. We just want to find a way to do it. And so, you know, if you're struggling with, and you're like, I want to find a way to take on ACH payments, why don't you build some statuses that say like, send a Melio ACH form, right? Because Melio is a great tool to receive ACH. You know, when it does that, it can then set a task list that says, check Melio, check the bank, make sure it's deposited, change status, right? Those are like 4 little steps you could build when a customer wants to pay for ACH, because Printavo doesn't offer it right now. Once it's done, all right, we've done it and it's installed, right? And so don't limit yourself to it. My money, customer, Stripe, bank account, wire. Nice.
Speaking of
wife.
we wife. That's the most important one.
I thought you said wire. I'm like, oh, okay, wiring money. Sweet.
So, we got a couple questions left. We got only 7 minutes. We might go a little bit over, folks, but we want to be respectful of everybody's time. Speaking of money, Steven, how much do you think shops should be spending on technology each year? And this is, of course, Steven's opinion, but how much do you think shops should spend on money each year? Or technology.
And how much do you spend? And I'm curious, how much do you spend? And then what other shops spend?
So all in last year, we spent, including our engineering, because we're developing a platform. We spent, and realized we have Shopify subscriptions we pay for our customers. We run like 15 Shopify stores at $80 a month. I want to say we spent $65,000 on everything that has to do with software. Okay, $65,000 is just 1.5 times our average employee, and we could not live without it. It's literally the nervous system of our business, right? Now,
that's actually a really smart way of looking at it, though. Right there is it's only 1.5 times what a normal employee costs, and how much more are you getting done? It'd be multiple employees worth.
I mean, Zapier, I had to get the unlimited plan on Zapier because it's like 20,000 zaps a month. I don't know, like $65,000 seems like a lot of money, but it's 1.5 times the average cost of your employee. I mean, and every employee in the company relies on it. We're not chintzy with good technology. If it's good technology and we know it's going to help us, we don't really flinch on it because it's actually our lowest cost. Now, if you're a shop that is not as aggressive as that, totally fine. I would take your total revenue and I'd be 1% to 2% of your total revenue, right? And so, you know, that's not crazy to say you should be spending $5,000 to $6,000 or whatever that may be, or $2,000 to $3,000, you know, on it. And just realize like anywhere between, I don't know, I couldn't really say because I think we more look at ourselves as a tech company sometimes. I look at it as a direct expense to your payroll. It's like, it's very much in line there. I don't know, Matt, what would you say? We were probably, when we were growing, Go ahead.
I think it definitely depends on the size of the shop. I look at it too with the different things. I look at what it's actually getting. So I'm going to default to Printavo, right? I talk to a lot of shops that are small shops, and I talk to a lot of shops that are large. I've also run both. The shop that I own, Sound and Fury, we only have myself and then one other guy, and then we have some help every now and then. We actually paid for Printavo Premium, which was quite a bit of money, but even though we were only about $100,000 a year in revenue, we're able to get a lot more done without having to hire more people. I think it's a mixture of, yeah, it's probably realistic to say that you're going to spend somewhere between $3,000 to $6,000 a year on automation, right? On your subscription services, on different things that make your business more efficient and effective. But you can also look at that as an investment. if you're at the $5,000-$6,000 mark, and well, I shouldn't invest more in this because I'm not making more than 100 or 200. You can also look at it and go, well, if I spend money on this service, can I avoid having to hire someone who's not going to love their job to do some, frankly, BS around here to get it done, right? So that gives you more opportunity. So it's the cost ratio benefit here is something you have to look at. I think it's without a doubt something to say that realistically, if you're trying to run a business, especially a screen printing or a decorative apparel business in this modern era, you're probably looking at around $5,000 to $10,000 if you're doing it with any real effectiveness. Not to say you can't do it for less, and I'd be excited to hear other folks tell me how they're doing it and how they're growing, and not just in a traction phase, but actually in a growth phase with what they're currently using, because that'd be great to learn that too. But I think your way of looking at it at 1.5 times an employee, that is huge.
Right. And as our business has grown, you start to work with like different mentors and advisors from other industries. When talking to we kind of have a board or an advisory board, they see what we actually pay on it. It's nominal compared to some other companies. And so I was on calls with Salesforce because we're getting to a point at scale where we really need a massive ERP, a massive overhaul. And they're $50,000 to $80,000 engagements. And those keep me up at night. They're talking about them and it's like a punk sales kid on the call, selling me. And I'm like, what? And then I start researching, and every legit company is built on it. And I'm like, okay, that's why. Right. And so when you look at these bigger enterprise companies that are mid-level, $5 to $25 million, some of their ERP installs are, 6 figures, no questions asked, but they realize they could never work without them. And so, I was always told act like the business you want to be, not the business you are, and so if you have to fake it a little bit to make it, that's okay with technology. But don't be left in the dust, right? Don't fight it. Don't put up walls, right? That's silly. There's always a better way to do it, and recognize those are what are going to hold you all together and help you scale. So, yeah.
Amazing. We got 2 questions left. Only took us an hour to get there.
Sweet.
Steven, tell us, what do you think about the Printavo automation update?
I text Bruce every day with a feature that I want. So if everyone's like, oh, you just you protect them and guard them. No, they have a channel with me called Steven's Ideas that they all ignore and mute. I have been giving them ideas. I give Bruce an idea every day. I'm like, hey, we should do this. Hey, we should do that. And usually he's like, we have a roadmap, Steven. Same thing. So my favorite part of automations, though, is the fact that you no longer have to do things in sequential order, right? And now you can go laterally at the same time. So what I mean by that is when one automation triggers, it can trigger 10 other things on different applications to different directions to different people all at the same time. I'll give you an example. We send out a proposal for approval, right? So customer calls in and says, I would like some shirts to be made. And the rep will say, hey, I'll send you a quote. On the phone, she will send that quote, and you don't have to hit 2 statuses now to do an email and a text. So those are combined now, which is just sweet. Just one less button you have to hit. But at the same exact time, it also text messages the sales rep, letting them know your customer is waiting on that quote. We've sent it to them. So when we have a sales rep that's out, on another campus, we can interact with their customers, and we can interact with the sales rep using the same exact status, right? And so if you have a status that says something's ready to go to press, you can let a salesperson know, you can let a customer know, you can let GraphX know, you can go in so many different ways all at the same time, and it all handles it simultaneously. And when you go to the messages, you can see everything moving left and right, which is cool. Yeah. So right now we have 6 different types of approvals. We actually have an internal approval now that we built. So if a sales rep doesn't have, a sales rep has to put a quote and request our corporate office's approval before we send it to their customer. And then we can reject our sales reps quote as well. So we work with it internally, externally. You go left, right. It's insane. I'm so I use it all the time now. So what about you guys? What have you guys seen other shops? Because I guess I have too many. what Mike says. But
The shop that I own is much smaller. The shops I've run in the past have been very large. The shop that I own, since it's really, I call it a 1.5 man hustle because I'm barely there, is keeping the good user experience. So like you said, being able to have the email and text happen simultaneously. And I use that text as more of a courtesy, like, hey, Matt from Sound and Fury here. I can use that short code to put my name in there, right? From Sound and Fury here, letting you know I emailed you over a proposal to your email, and it fills in the email for me. So nice little courtesy text. Then when they click approve, I have it now change status to quote approved, which also triggers a text to them saying, thank you for approving your proposal. We'll follow up with an art proposal. And it texts myself and the other owner, hey, a quote's been approved. So now that time between quote approval and him following next steps drastically reduced, delivering an even better user experience when they're getting hit up quickly with the art approval or the next step. So it's all keeping everything automated and everybody on the same page, turning times quicker and delivering an amazing user experience. I think for me, the overall best part about the automations is that we are at the tip of the iceberg. What this opened up and what it's going to do, and I already know they're working on, is vastly more robust. So we're literally looking at like what we have now, and underneath that sea level, we've got the rest coming. So that's really it for me.
I've got one hack I want to show you all. Bruce is in the room. Hey, Bruce. I put a tattoo on your face. So I'm going to show one really cool hack that we did recently that I think everyone's going to like. If you use merch, this is pretty neat. So what you can do now with your automations is you can pick the status and you can see everything associated to that automation. So what we actually did is we created an online store agreement automation. Before we build the store, we send them an approval, and in that approval, it makes them sign their name and say, here, I'll just show you guys. It says office online store proposal to customer. And it says to them, thank you for requesting an online store. Please check over all the mockups and approve your store, and we'll build it within the next business day. To ensure a successful store, we ask you read through the following and approve the link. Your store will close on this date. It'll be shipped by then. We require 24 pieces to be printed per design. All the different rules, we make them hit approve. And it's just this, like, it helps so much. Below it, it says, please review the items of your online store and approve or request changes. We've sent you a detailed email outlining everything you will need to know for your store. Please check it over and let us know if you have any questions. So that's the first step. And from a store standpoint, we probably have 50 to 60 stores running at a time. So it's helped immensely with cancellations, refunds, hitting minimums, just that part. On the flip side of it, we have automation set up to say, so what we do is if a store is going to close next week, can you guys still see my screen? So if we look at this online store and we see that it's in progress, we can actually drill into it. I'll take a look at it. I'll check if minimums are being met. And if they're being met, I have a status that says online store closing soon. Please send a last call. And we do that 3 days before the store closes. So it notifies the invoice creator, letting them know, hey, your store's doing good. It's closing in 3 days. And then what we also have is a status that says online store closing soon, minimums not met yet. And what that does for us is it tells the invoice creator and the customer, you have a store that's about to fail. You better get on it pretty quickly or we're going to cancel and refund everything. It has been those merch changes that we've done in the last 3 weeks have been have generated more money in saving orders and just marketing for us. Because most of the time merch only works well if your customer markets the store. So why not build some automation to speed it up and let the salesperson know at the same time, you don't want to get stuck. We don't want to deal with them being angry and all that kind of stuff. So I know, Nick, it's an aha. I got you. We haven't been to trade shows in a while together, but
Dude,
I
I think it also is a really good, as we're near the end here, it really hits a lot of buttons. It's hard to remember to tell your customer to market. It's their job, so it's kind of hard to remember it. But if you automate it, it's a lot easier. It's something that stops the friction, and it's something that reduces the mental stress. So I think that example right there, Stephen mentioned setting up reminders to tell the customer to market their company store, their fundraiser store. That's an awesome idea. So yes,
And there's still a human involved in that. Like Laura knows she has to check stores, she has an SOP for it. But I do know on the product side, you guys are working on some updates to automation to be time sensitive too, which, sorry if I leaked that, but you guys are already thinking about it. And that's the thing is like, think of 3 things and they've already thought about it. It's just, one feature takes time to build. So cool hacks like that.
Okay, last question, then we got a quick wrap up. I'm going to answer the question, then I'm going to go Steven and Matt. But sorry for holding you over, but this has been an awesome conversation, and we still have everybody here who joined, so I'm sure they don't care. Anyway, the last question is, think of your answers, gentlemen. Is it too late to automate, and when will it be too late? In my opinion, it is not too late, but it is almost too late. I think by the end of the year, it will be too late. The reason I think so is because computers are the tool of the 21st century. We're 21 years into the century now. You've got to think about computers. If you think, I hate computers, I don't want to use computers, well, I think that mental block is holding you back. I think it might help you to think about computers like a tool and even think of them like your favorite tool you use every day. It's another tool. If you don't like computers today, that doesn't mean you don't like computers a week from now. You got to get out. If you have it in your head, if anybody listening has this in their head, I don't like computers. Okay, enough of that. Got to like computers. It's the 21st century. So I think it is not too late, but I truly do think you are at the last minute. And I'm a procrastinator. I love writing a paper the night before it's due. But you are almost at the point, you as the world, we are almost at the point where you have to automate processes and use computers, or else you will be left far in the dust. Okay, Matt, what do you think? Is it too late? When will it be too late?
It's not too late. I'm going to go a little more aggressive, and I'd say that tomorrow is too late. So I want everybody watching this to get in the habit of, okay, today's not too late, tomorrow is. I need to take an action today to find my first automation, right? Now that may be as simple as going into your Printavo and actually utilizing the automations that are recently launched in there, right? Try to find one time saver in what you currently have. Don't spend any more money today. Just spend 5-10 minutes to figure out how to save 5 or 10 minutes consistently. So in my opinion, tomorrow's too late. Start making small changes today so you don't have to worry about really being at the precipice of it being really too late, which I agree is within this year. So I'd say it's not too late. Tomorrow is too late. Start small, start now.
Yeah, I think everything you guys are saying is spot on. I know Nick's got 2021 conspiracy theories, and Matt, you see shops. You've been in more shops than we can imagine, and so you've probably been in a shop stuck in 1960, and you've probably been in a shop that looks like a Tesla factory. I think the one thing we should understand in our industry is we are in a very dated industry, meaning we are behind the curve of automation. What does that mean? Is that if we don't do it, someone else will, because the rest of the world is there. And the last thing we need is to have that, come in and kind of take over our industry. Like the last thing we need is Amazon to really pull something off, because it could easily happen without us like realizing it. And so we almost have to look at it and say, this year allowed us all to reset our companies. We all got to hit the reset button, literally. Now that you're running a brand new company, how are you going to be prepared for, whatever is going to be thrown at you when the world flips again, right? Like no one ever asked me 5 years ago in my business plan, what's going to happen when there's a pandemic and there's no group orders. I didn't think of that. None of us did, right? But we were constantly working on merch and e-commerce and fulfillment and bagging and tagging and individual shipping. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is as time progresses, those who don't choose to will just make the conscious decision that they don't want to be in business anymore, no differently than picking up a taxi versus an Uber. And, I have competitors in this town. I have people that have said, we don't want to get into fulfillment or do any of that stuff. And it's like, automate or die, right? And so I know that in our industry, it's scary, but I think we all spend a ton of money on the shiniest presses, right? And that's all we want to talk about. Why don't we talk about our technology, right? And how seamless it is and how beautiful it is and how awesome the experience is. And so that when our customers come in, they're just like, whoa, holy cow. Yeah, you guys are no different than Grubhub. That's the kind of compliments that you want from your customers because the world is prepared for it. Get after it.
Awesome. I'm going to wrap us up here. Thank you so much, Steven. Thank you so much for sharing this information. Thank you so much, Matt, for
Yep.
keeping
And
everybody up track, keeping us up to date. If you want, okay, Steve, go ahead.
No, if anyone wants to reach out, literally like Instagram, Matt, we talk about this all the time. I'll help out a couple. I don't actually do it like full time. I kind of do it for fun, but I'm happy to help like shops automate if they do need help. If there's something that I'm going to point you to the success team to do, but if there are things that y'all want to do, we love a good challenge for sure. But just recognize like we want to build something that's sustainable, that you guys can continue to grow on. So I'll be sharing some more things, but we're super excited. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No worries, man. Yes, love it. Okay, Steven brought up a great point. If you are a Printavo user and you're hearing about these new automations, we are literally here to help. Success@printavo.com. Shoot us an email. If you haven't talked to us in a while, please talk to us. We want to talk about this workflow stuff. We want to go through, show you all the new tools. It's a lot of fun. In an hour, you can get so much done. So give us an email, success@printavo.com. Another thing, if you're not a Printavo user and you'd like to be, how about you shoot us an email to sales@printavo.com. You could talk to me or somebody with a much less annoying Chicago accent. So give us an email, sales@printavo.com. Then we've also been talking a little bit about our contest. We're trying to do a contest every single week. This time we got our best prize yet. Show them the bobblehead, Steven. It's the Bruce bobblehead. Bruce from Printavo, right as a bobbler. Oh, I love it. I got one. It's over there. I'm not going to get it right this minute, but the way you enter, do something in your shop that's making a technology change. Do some sort of automation change. Take a picture. Put it on Instagram and tag Steven and Printavo. Here's a good example. Take a picture of your Printavo calendar and say, hey, look at this. I got 10 new automations set up when I gave Matt a call. Perfect example. Make a post, tag Printavo, tag Campus Inc., and you could have a little Bruce on your desk to say what's up YouTube too every single day. So
what's up, Print Hustlers?
Yes. Okay. Oh, one last thing. We do this every 2 weeks. We have some shops coming up. We have some really exciting topics. If you have a topic you would like to hear about or speak about, go ahead and shoot us an email to sales@printavo.com. Always looking for new guests. Always want to talk about new things and learn new stuff. We want this to be a learning space for people in the custom apparel industry. So we are so glad you all joined us today. We hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. And just email us